What's up and welcome back to the Metalhead Car Show. With the new season of Car Trek on Travar's channel on YouTube, I want to go over my top 10 list of my favorite cars ever used on Car Trek. So before we get into it, this video is riddled with spoilers, and there's nothing from the new season. And I hope we get all these seasons numbered properly. So let's get right into it. In 10th place from season 6, the million mile Lexus Travar used. So season 6, the premise was a 3-car garage for $30,000, and you go buy a sports car, a SUV or off-roader, and a sedan. Now Travar chose Japan, so he chose to use the million mile Lexus because he bought it for this price. Now the million mile Lexus deserves a video in itself, so I'll take one below so you can go watch it later. Now what makes it crazy that Travar used it is the fact that, well, he used it. This car has 1,000,000 miles on it. People get freaked out when someone gets 200,000 on it. And in a starter issue, it wasn't the fastest thing there, but it never failed. It never really broke down. It never had any show-ending issues. So it's super impressive the fact that it did it, and again, super cool, he used it at all.
So let's talk about the most iconic.
In 9th place, Ed Bullion's TVR. So the TVR was used in season 7, and the premise of season 7 was buying cars for Car Trek that you couldn't originally buy for them America when they're new. So I found this really cool because the TVR Sebra that he used was kind of the first TVR I really got into. So the fact that I got to see it kind of in action nowadays was something just a little bit special. But as cool as I found this car, I don't think it was running properly for 1 minute. And it was just a complete disaster the entire season. And as a car guy who has access to Auto Trader and Auto Tempest and whatnot, I always look at these cars and kind of dream of what they're actually like to own. This kind of showed what it's actually like to own kind of an aging, neglected TVR. But as much of a pile of trash as this may be, it's still obviously one of my favorite cars they've used. In 8th place from season 1, Ed Bullion's Lamborghini Gallardo. So this Gallardo was a kind of a cool mix. It was a wrapped blue Gallardo convertible with a gated manual, and it was also a flood title car, so I don't think it behaved at any point in time the entire show. So the premise of season 8 was buying an aging supercar for less than it was to buy at that point in time, new C8 Corvette. So this car fit the bill of being less than a new C8 Corvette at the time, but you'd be completely better off with the C8 Corvette. It's a fantastic car, and these all had issues. But also, on the point of nostalgia, it'd be hard to pass up the Lamborghini over a new C8. All three of them that season did a great job picking their cars. They all picked the right car, but Ed just did it a little bit better in my opinion. In 7th place and back to season 6, Travar's RX-7.
And it puts a smile on your face every single time.
So this RX-7 is probably the most offensive RX-7 I've ever seen. Probably even a little more than the Zero Fucks Given RX-7 I talked about a while ago. But I found this RX-7 really cool. I think this is kind of a dream car. The right-hand drive, fixed headlight, big turbo, Gen 3 RX-7. They're going up in price right now, but I think those are turning into kind of this unsung hero next to the Skyline and Supra, which are all exploding in value. Now, the rotary of this RX-7 is probably starting to get a little wonky. I'm sure it needs a full rebuild at this point, but in that whole season, it performed pretty well, and it actually won Travar's first Car Trek. Really cool car, I'm sure is an absolute hoot to hoon around in. 6th place in Tyler's first entry in the list, the Dodge Viper from season 8. So the premise of season 8 was to buy aging supercars for less than a Tesla Model 3 that were absolute gas guzzlers. And Tyler Hoovy doesn't really pick my favorite cars ever, but I think for this season, he absolutely nailed it. I don't think there's many other cars that fit that bill perfect of loud, in-your-face, obnoxious gas guzzler like a Viper from any generation. Now this car proved to be a little bit scary in the wet.
That was 120.
I have never gripped the steering wheel harder in my entire life. Ever.
But I think by far this is one of the coolest things that Tyler's brought to the table for Kart Trek. From season 6, Tyler Hoover's Trans Am. Now, I know everything I just said about the Viper being the coolest thing he's brought to the table, but the Trans Am just hits with me just a little bit different. I think it's equally obnoxious, but also it's in this kind of price range where one day I'll be able to afford it. Now, when they did this, it was a little bit down in power. I believe he went through a set of tires pretty quickly, but that car just does it for me. It's so loud, obnoxious, and flamboyant that it just hits every box for me. I love that car so much. And it was cool to see with this one that you could kind of tell that he was having just a lot of fun with this, which I assume he has a lot of fun with all the cars he brings. But this one in particular just seemed to be a bit more, and it was just kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, that is good.
Same season, different car. In 4th place, Travaris's Toyota Supra.
I could do this all day.
Now, I believe it was a little bit down in power due to some boost leaks, but it was still a monster when it was there. And this is the first time he brought one of his projects to the party, and it was kind of cool to see it wasn't just all show, and these cars do work, despite having a little bit of issues. I think Travaris did a great job building that Supra, and it's definitely my favorite car from that whole season. In 3rd place, Ed Bullion's Ferrari 599 from Season 4. Now, all things considered, Ed cheated for this one. The premise of Season 4 was to buy a Ferrari for the same size as a Camry.
That sound.
And he had some ridiculous logic of if you spread out the payments for the next 20-something years, it's the same car payment as it would be for a Camry. So not cheating, but completely cheating. Nonetheless, it's a front-engine V12 Enzo, essentially, that's also a flood car, so it was misbehaving as you'd expect. One thing I found really cool about this, and I'm sure there's some other cars kind of come up in the same sort of mindset of this, is I remember watching this car on Top Gear, of it being the new huge step up Ferrari, and now jump forward 10, 15 years, whatever it's been, it's kind of one of the aging supercars on Kart Trek. I love that. 2nd place, Tyler's SLS AMG Gullwing from Season 5.
He must be screaming right now.
He has never felt the floor underneath the gas pedal.
And one last time, I know what I said about the Viper, and I stand by it, but the SLS is probably my favorite thing Tyler owns out of his entire car collection. Truth, I'm a big sucker for cars with gullwing doors, but it also looks really nice, and it has that 6.2 AMG engine, which I think is one of the best V8s of all time. And he also showed that thing was an absolute rocket ship down the runway when they got to do some drag racing.
150. Woo! Oh!
I also find that's probably one of the coolest Mercedes built in a very long time, and I think that's going to be a future classic. I won't be shocked at all when we see those things up for $1 million in the foreseeable future. Love that he used it. And in 1st place, from Season 5, Ed Bullion's Lamborghini Murcielago LP640. You can keep your Carrera GT, you can keep your LFA. The LP640 is one of the best sounding cars of all time, and I will fight anyone on that. Now, this car had holes in its interior, it's basically its stereo, but it looks so aggressive and it sounds amazing. And any Murcielago with a gated manual is cool. It also just reminded me of Top Gear a little bit, which I've referenced before. But when Top Gear reviewed the LP640 back in 06, 07, whatever it was also in the same color and whatnot, so it just brought me back to that. The Murcielago is also my favorite car, so seeing Ed bring one out for this was just a little special. That's my top 10 Kart Trek cars ever used. But I want to know, what's your favorite? And what do you think of the current season? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed what you've seen. I post on Instagram and occasionally TikTok, and I'll see you later.